Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Welcome to Wednesday. We have a bit of a variety for you today. Nashville and Middle Tennessee has countless organizations, groups, and events and causes that you should know about. We here at This is Nashville, we do our best to cover them. Today, we're going to share a couple of points of interest with you. We'll talk with the manager of the NECAT network, that's Nashville's public access television network, about a new documentary that they've produced and are ready to debut. It's called It's All Connected, The Art of Sustainability. The film explores Nashville's sustainability initiatives through the lens of art, waterways, and community-driven projects. But first, we're going to visit with some of the good people at the Scarritt Bennett Center. That is a conference and retreat center in the heart of downtown Nashville. Last year, the campus celebrated 100 years of service in women's empowerment, racial justice, and spiritual transformation. Joining me now from the Scarritt Bennett Center are Reverend Dr. Sondrea Tolbert, she's the executive director, Reverend Kelli X, who's the director of Racial Justice Ministries, and Linda Furtado, the director of Spirituality and Arts. I'd like to welcome you all to This is Nashville. Thanks for being here.
Thank you
for the invitation. It is an honor and a privilege.
It's a privilege is all ours. Okay, so I want to start by understanding the history of the Scarritt Bennett Center. You know, as I said moments ago, the campus is 101 years old. Sondrea, can you talk get us started on the history of the center?
Oh, most definitely. We are so excited that we are in the throes of not only this 101, let's say it now, that Scarritt has been in existence. Scarritt started out as a college for women. It came from Kansas City, Missouri to Nashville in 1924. And it was the Scarritt College for Christian Workers. And from that, the college kind of ended in 1988 and had a transformation, if you will, and transformed into the Scarritt Bennett Center. And so we've been at Scarritt Bennett Center for the last 38 years, providing some radical hospitality in the area of lodging, meeting spaces, weddings, some holding space for creative dialogue, as well as just a place for community to gather. We like to say that we are the really the quiet space, the quiet oasis in the middle of the hustle and bustle of Midtown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what I understand, the Scarritt Bennett Center has really put a priority on the focus of women's empowerment. Mm-hmm. And some very important women helped not only launch the center, but maintain it. Who are some of the luminaries of the center, and what did they do really to establish their legacy?
Oh, my shero is Belle Harris Bennett. Belle Harris Bennett had that vision and the United Methodist Women to really provide a training space for women to be all that they could be, I like to say, because it started off with training in the religious, educational sphere to provide schooling to be able to serve in as a missionary, but it grew to be so much more than that. At a time when women were trying to struggle for the right to vote, when the women was just trying to find place in church, trying to find place in community. And so Scarritt lives into that even to this day, championing those causes for women's rights, providing that safe space for dialogue, providing that safe space to lift up those voices through our programming in women's empowerment, through our creative side for the spiritual arts and spirituality in the arts. So it's just the space.
It's always been a space and a place for, when we look at our tenets, and one of those being transformative education, for launching and engaging in educational topics and concepts that were not necessarily normative, and growing and developing and, shifting, changing with the times in a way, but not so much to kind of keep up with the Joneses and the times and the things that are happening, but to get on the forefront and ahead of what's needed, maybe the stuff that's not being addressed. Well, Scarritt Bennett is a place to experiment, to develop, to explore, to create opportunities, to really dig into where the needs are.
Can you tell me more about United Women in Faith? Like, what does that arm of the center look like? What's its mission?
I'm getting pointed at. I
The
am
resident United Women in Faith person.
Well, as a woman in the United Methodist Church, I am blessed to be a part of United Women in Faith in a very historic and present way. This organization really sets the bar in a lot of ways for what it looks like to support, advocate, be about the work of Christ in the world. And this connection is a global connection, and it is because of the history of this organization that is now known as United Women in Faith that Scarritt Bennett exists.
Yes.
And if you have ever gone to D.C., one of those buildings right on the cusp of all things happening, they own what a city block it feels like
In New York.
Their national offices right there, right across from the Capitol. And I don't think there's any other religious institution in the area. So these ladies invested early and continue and set it up themselves in a lot of ways to be about God's business through very strategic and important social justice actions, and otherwise being about supporting everything from creation care to people, human care, God's creation, if you will. So this organization is really rooted and intentional about what we're about. And so we exist because of, and frankly, the land is owned by the United Women in Faith. And so we are working to be good stewards of what this organization has made possible.
And I love it. I'm sorry.
Keep going.
But no, I just want to say that I love it because they changed from United Methodist Women to United Women in Faith because we are not just about United Methodists. We are an inclusive space.
Yes.
An inclusive space.
And interfaith.
And interfaith. So it is interfaith or non-faith. So we have the distinct privilege of being able to be a space that no matter what you believe, we hold space for that. And so that's really kind of the crusp of Scarritt. That we are so interfaith or non-faith. In some instances, that space is just a neutrality of space. That everybody's welcome to the table.
Now, I also understand that the center's been a leader in racial justice here in Nashville and also nationwide. And Reverend Kelli, you're the director of Racial Justice Ministries at the center. Can you talk to us about the legacy of working for racial justice and that the center holds and how that fuels what you're doing today?
Well, I would say that legacy doesn't start with the center, it starts with the college. And so knowing that there were both professors who took time to go to the Highlander Center to be trained, and then even after Alice Cobb, did I say that correctly?
You said it
I did it
correctly.
good, thank you. That after Alice Cobb even retired from Scarritt, went and worked at the Highlander School, which trained so many of our civil rights leaders and continues to do the work of justice in that way. Scarritt is a historically white institution that decided in the 1952, to be the first private institution to integrate. And so, and to make sure that integration happened, prior to Board versus Brown versus Board of Education and all of that, and in a time when racism was not taboo. You know, like now, the idea you would never call someone, racism was ingrained because there was this true understanding and belief that there was difference.
Yeah.
And so in order to show that difference is not true and to show that understanding was not Christian.
Yeah.
Yes.
That the
Anna Kareem
faculty, they decided that what they were going to do is that they were going to bring in 2 African-American women to the institution. And what they did was ingenious. They did not tell anybody they were there until they graduated.
Oh, wow.
So they're there for 2 whole years. It also speaks to the fact that what was also happening that speaks to this difference is that there were already international students on campus.
Oh, yeah. Lots of classes and all kinds of things.
And all types of things. And so it speaks to our own, the ways in which we trip over ourselves to be discriminatory. And it shows how racism doesn't even make sense because you're like, well,
you can come from Africa, you can come from Asia, you can come from Caribbean, you can come from it, but born on native soil right here in America,
those are different types.
You're not allowed.
You're not allowed. And so they came and they sang in the choir and they were part of student government. They were active members of the community. And not only were they active there, once they left, they went out in the world and were continuing to do this amazing work. And so we come out of the legacy of that. And students, white students creating organizations where they are like, we know that the Black students at the HBCUs are doing work. How can we support? So they are also being a part of the sit-ins and all of that as well.
Okay, I have a question. You said that they had 2 African-American female students on campus.
Yes.
No one knew until they graduated.
Yes.
What happened once people found out that the college educated these 2 young women?
Well, I mean, it's such a remarkable story. And let's go ahead and lift up their names. Miss Delaris Robinson, Delaris Johnson Risher, and Miss Leila Robinson Dabbs. Miss Dabbs has since gone on to be with the Lord, but Miss Delaris is still alive. And so we have firsthand account from her, like her voice that tells us.
And writings from.
And writings from Miss Leila that tells us about their time at Scarritt and how they were not kind of had to be kept a secret in order for this integration to happen. And that once they graduate, they're on the Nashville banner page. As
photo of them in their cap and gown.
A photo with them in a cap and gown with the president and all. And that, Scarritt graduates. And this is their second degree. Let us say that.
Okay.
This is their master's that they're getting.
Okay.
Yes.
They're there with the photo that says Scarritt graduates 42, 2 of them Negroes.
Yeah.
And then they start calling the college, saying you can't do that. And the infamous storyline is that the administrative secretary at the time answers and says, "It's already done."
Yep.
It's already done.
It's already done. And so to have from that type of legacy and to really say that, really that's the realization of Belle Harris Bennett, her vision was to train. And so to go from women to women of color to even that women of color serving in ministry at a time when, again, women were not, quote unquote, as welcome. And then you have her going on, Miss Delaris going on to be a deaconess in the church. Serving in a Navajo conference, and that's with the indigenous population. And so you have this span of internationalness of Scarritt that's not just, although we say 100 years of impact here in Nashville, it's really globally.
I'm curious. You all 3 work there. When you heard that story, what were your thoughts? What were your impacts? Did you hear the story before you began working there? Were you working there for a little while when you get told that story? I'm wondering how it impacted you as women, as Black women.
I really want to hear what they have to say because I know I'm the one that kind of found her.
Well,
I literally found her. Literally found her. That's an interesting story too.
I think I walk in when you have found her. So my not even my first day. I haven't started yet.
Yeah.
But week before I start.
Oh yes, because I was on a podcast and I think you were listening or something. Yeah, go ahead.
And that was when Miss Leila comes and they dedicate the house because there are all of the buildings except for one, I believe, are named after women.
The women.
On campus on the 11 acres.
11 acres, all are named after women.
Are named after women. And so there's a house, and we've now have a house named after Miss Leila and Miss
Leila and Miss
Delaris and Miss Leila Johnson Robinson House. And for me, what was interesting to me was this idea. I couldn't figure out how they could keep them a secret. And it is because they didn't think racism worked unless you were a Black American. So that was one of those things that for me that it stood out to me that the reason why they were there, because there were people with melanin on campus going to classes. And it speaks to the possibility that probably all of the schools in some ways in America were somewhat integrated in some sense, depending on where your ancestry comes from.
Okay.
And so for me, that was that. It was also really interesting for me in the story that they weren't to be together, that they had to, and so how they had to communicate with each other to find community. And it,
They had to steal away in bathrooms
to talk.
and the hallways and in private rooms.
And
But the mission was so important to them that they did it.
And-
that speaks to they understood the importance of what was going on.
and the other students kept the secret. And so, like, that's 2 years of nobody talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we're like, I know that we don't know when folks are, Beyonce's pregnant, all these other things. You gotta have
a lot of things. Social media now wasn't invented then.
Right.
So we didn't
And
have that
so
pressure.
to have all those people keep a secret
Yeah.
in order to move forward a mission to create, and that the goal was because they said racism does not align with Christian values.
I find that very interesting,
Yes.
particularly in very tense times.
Yes.
That everyone on campus was able to keep this secret, knowing how close the campus is to Vanderbilt, and
Yes.
people can just walk by and see something and expose it. But I do want to talk about some of the main themes of the center. It centers around spirit and soul. As you all said, it's a place where people can kind of come to worship and connect with each other. Linda, you are the director of Soul Work, which
Yes.
I have a feeling is a lot more than just a very, very cool title.
It is a cool title.
It is. What does the director of Soul Work do?
So in Soul Work Ministries, you're basically combining pretty much anything that can connect you with one another, with the divine, however you may define that, with creation and the earth. And however that shows up, it's basically a cross between all things spirituality and all things arts and creativity. And I'll just say a nod to what's coming up. That art of sustainability you're going to hear about later, that totally connects with my work in a lot of ways. And in fact, it can show up in a lot of ways as well. I find that the scope of what I am able to do and support and lead and offer ranges from performance opportunities where you can engage with one another in creativity and artistic expression, yet also religious leaning, intentional opportunities such as prayer and worship and praise, and yet a cross between all of them as well. So it might show up in various ways in our art gallery with poetry readings or performance artwork or displays. It might show up outside on our campus. It might show up inside of a dedicated worship space, such as our Whiteman Chapel, or in an auditorium theater style setting where we're doing theatrical productions and variety shows and meet and greets and panel discussions. Like whatever it can look like, we try to make that happen on our campus. And I try to lead in such a way that we tie in the various ways and layers in which we can connect with one another and share our stories and look at what our story will look like now that we've connected in the future.
How do you take time each day at the center to get some soul work in?
Oh, that shows up all kind of ways. I like to take intentional pauses, and a good intentional pause for me involves silence. And I've watercolored sitting at a chair in Whiteman Chapel, and I've walked our prayer labyrinth outside, and simply take that pause and lean into the moment. There's something special about meditation and connection with oneself in relationship to where you were versus where you want to be, and to be able to take a creative expression tool or resource such as a labyrinth, such as paintbrushes, such as writing. It might be at a journal. It might be sitting at the piano, playing and singing and songwriting. But I do all of those things on campus at one time or another. And you're welcome to hang out with me.
At the same time sometimes.
At the same time sometimes, that's true. I'm a creative nut, and it's a gift to be able to work in a space, in a place, and in a position where I can actually do all of these things that I've been gifted and graced and invited and had the opportunity to train and develop over time. And then to do it with others is just the best.
All right, let's take one quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the Scarritt Bennett Center and learn why it's a place for more than just conferences, performances, and weddings. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com. Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. We're talking about the Scarritt Bennett Center. It's a peaceful campus in downtown Nashville. Now, before the break, we learned of the history and legacy of the center and its role in the civil rights movement, as well as its continuing mission for women's empowerment. Now, I want to explore a little bit about the campus itself and learn about some of the events that you can experience when you visit. My guests are Reverend Dr. Sondrea Tolbert. She's the executive director. Reverend Kelli X, the director of Racial Justice Ministries, and Linda Furtado. She is the director of spirituality and arts. Again, thank you all for being here. Really enjoying this conversation. So I've had the pleasure of visiting the campus twice. First time I visited, it was for lunch, the community lunch that's really open to the public. And I have to say the food is great, first of all.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Really
That's
tasty.
evidenced by the pounds.
And secondly, it was the atmosphere. All types of people eating, talking in this dining hall. Can one of you break down the history of the lunch and why was it established to be this open community lunch?
It's that space that Scarritt kind of provides for people, the whole community. When we look at it, when we got there, it had already been in existence, but during COVID, there was no kind of sense of community. We started it back up. And then even in looking at the history of Scarritt, the dining hall itself, Susie Gray Dining Hall, is the building that the Nashville community donated to build. So to actually have community lunch, the place where the community comes to gather, to talk, to eat, to meet up, to celebrate milestones. We have people coming for birthday parties, bringing their friends, people walk clubs coming, walking the labyrinth that you guys talked about earlier. And having meeting spaces and just having dialogue. It has been the space, we keep saying that, it has been that quiet, sacred space for people to come and gather. And so this meal, over the communal, being able to sit and talk to one another and not just be so bombarded with social media. So now you have a space to eat good food at a reasonable price and have great conversation with people from all walks of life. Because at any given point in time, you can see people on campus from 0 to 100. Because it's, there's students, kids, that daycare centers that walk and play around there as well. But that community lunch is the heartbeat, I would say. Yeah. It's the heart, really, of not only Scarritt, but the community. Because either you're coming from Edge Hill, you're coming from Vanderbilt, you come from across the street at Meharry, you have students, you have faculty, you have nurses, you have docs.
Just random folks.
Random folks.
Visit Nashville and
construction workers. I mean, everybody's sitting at the table. And it's just dialogue. Sometimes it's some intense. You're kind of like looking over there going, what they talking about? What they planning?
And then it's the place where both business meetings happen, but also book clubs gather there. There are men's groups, women's groups, seniors, church groups like to come. And they know they're going to get an excellent meal. They're going to spend $15 to eat, both have mead and couple of vegetables, a salad. You also have amazing soft serve ice cream and a drink. I mean, there's so much, and you never know when you might just randomly get a dessert. It might end up being a banana pudding day, and there you go. And so that it's just so much happening in that space. And then on top of that, the staff then gets to know you.
That part right there.
And then and they'll know what your drink is going to be. And so they're
before you go to the line.
They're gonna make sure you have what you need. And if you don't eat meat, there are vegan and vegetarian options that they are so excited to provide and prepare for. So it is very much so a place where hospitality is justice.
Yeah, and networking is happening at those
all
tables.
the time.
I mean, you never know who you're going to meet and how
Judges.
Meeting someone is going to lend to something else. So
Correct.
I think that has been the just amazing part of community lunch.
What days are the lunches offered?
Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 to 1.
All right.
The menus change weekly, but they're thematic. On Tuesdays is 2 for Tuesday, so you get 2 entrees. And then on Wednesday is International Day. Thursday is Soul Food. And Friday is all things fried. Fried Friday.
Talk about it.
I'm getting hungry.
If you don't know Earl,
You just got to know Earl.
Follow our events on our website and look for that community lunch and second you see fried chicken. I know
You need to be there.
folks talk about Nashville chicken and all. When you see fried chicken at Scarritt Bennett.
Yeah.
And if you can, pay ahead or let some folks know if you're bringing a group because we will prepare for the numbers, but we need to know you're coming.
Yes,
so
it's true.
you can also show up at random on your own without notice, but if you're going to bring a crew, just let us know.
Let us know how many you bring.
Because 2 weeks ago we had 90 folks for a birthday party for one of our regulars. Because she comes after she gets her hair done to have lunch, and so she brought her people.
All right. So aside from this wonderful lunch, you also you host conferences, but there's performances as well that take place there at the center. How does the center facilitate those events? It seems like there can be a lot going on all
On any
the time.
given, we are multifaceted, at any given point in time, for groups as well as meeting spaces, as well as the performances. I think we love the performances, concerts. We have people who've done video recordings there. We ourselves put on programming that bring noteworthy speakers from all over. Last year, we had Reverend Dr. Bernice King to celebrate her father speaking there in the historic Whiteman Chapel that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke at Scarritt in Whiteman Chapel.
47 years prior.
Yeah. 60. Yeah, it was 60. Yeah. Yes.
It was when Vanderbilt wouldn't let him speak in their chapel.
Yeah, it was when, and so he came over. But we have that space for folks lodging as well as Airbnbs. I don't like to call them Airbnbs. We call them private stays because they are really, people come for their retreats. And so they block that time off. Or if you're just visiting Nashville or have some friends in that you don't want to stay at your house and they want to stay on campus in a nice, serene environment, they do that.
And I will say that it's really beautiful that we have all of this facility to offer. And a lot of those offerings are free and open to the public, art gallery and poetry performances and some other opportunities. A number of things may be paid, may not, in partnership with community members. I know that we partner with the National Chamber Music Society, and they're bringing in an Emmy Award winner, Titus Underwood, this week, who's going to be performing with that chamber music on Friday evening. And we try to put all these events on our events calendar, but whether we're hosting or facilitating with Sona's Choir or the Nashville Black Music Association, huge with the W. Krim singers, Dream 7 Theater Productions, they often will rehearse on our campus and offer performances for some of our opportunities like we would offer through Juneteenth or even just writers who want to get together and talk about stuff. And a little bit of training. We're doing
is there one that's this weekend?
There is one this weekend. We're going to get together and learn from a couple of professionals out there, a little bit about publishing, but also just time apart to sit and do the thing. Sometimes it's not just performing in order to display one's works, but it's also coming together to creatively produce and develop and think and support one another in creating those wonderful, creative, and artsy, beautiful things.
All right. Now, outside the campus is very beautiful and peaceful, as we mentioned, even though it's located in the heart of Nashville. And in February, I took a visit and got a tour from Linda. We stopped by an installation outside known as the aforementioned Prayer Labyrinth. Let's listen to Linda explain that concept to us.
This grassy area is our prayer labyrinth. If you don't know what a prayer labyrinth is, this prayer labyrinth is designed, as most are, so that there's an entry point from the outside into this circular design. It definitely looks like a maze, particularly down on it from the sky. And as you follow the path will weave back and forth, in and out, and eventually you will end up at the center of the circle. And then you can walk it back right the way you came in, following the path backwards and out to where the circle started. You can't really get lost in the prayer labyrinth, short of it being a season where it's not super green and it blending a little with some of the stones or bricks. But I encourage trying it. So if you need somewhere to pray and you want to come late at night, and you'll probably be able to walk the labyrinth at any hour you would like. One thing you'll find at the prayer labyrinth is stakes in the ground at random points. And if you need a guide because you've never done one before, we have a recording that I've done. There's a QR code and a URL, and you can do the guided meditation through the prayer labyrinth. Put on some headphones and listen your way through as you walk it. Following a prayer labyrinth, whether with your finger on a piece of paper, I particularly encourage walking one, such as ours, outside, or following with your finger on a screen, if you can pull one up on your computer. There's something about calming your heart and your mind through a practice that requires you to slow down. There's no rushing.
All right. So how often do people use the prayer labyrinth?
All the time.
Right? All the time.
We're Linda and our offices are on that side of campus. And when I say that there's constantly people walking the labyrinth, there are
why
people
I was saying it's not green all the time.
It's not, because people are always walking the labyrinth with or without shoes on. Because they're also grounding in that. The activity of grounding is happening in that moment. And because you cannot get lost in a labyrinth because it's not a maze, it's a path that you take the time to follow in and follow out. Folks are coming from all over to center themselves in the midst of the loud, busy world that is surrounding us, but for some reason seems to damper down when you step onto the Scarritt campus.
You know, final question. You know, we live in times of great division, and folks are not only cynical, but they're skeptical of their opposition. In some cases, folks they're even aligned with. Give us the good word on how the Scarritt Bennett Center can serve as a bridge between folks and become that gateway of understanding. Linda?
When you come to Scarritt Bennett, you're coming to a place that is, I consider, and we actually have a connecting point, a safe space for connection, for support for one another. And when you come to Scarritt Bennett, we create these opportunities so that we can do that good work that recognizes for one another that we each matter. We're important. We're valuable. And using every facility, tool, resource, guide, whatever we can do, from personal retreats to performances, to come there, to come together in person and virtually so that we can learn to love in a meaningful way. And that's really what this whole thing is. What does love look like?
Really beautiful. I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for this conversation. My guests were Sondrea Tolbert. She is the executive director at the Scarritt Bennett Center. She was joined by Reverend Kelli X, the director of Racial Justice Ministries, and Linda Furtado. She is the director of spirituality and arts, who is on her way to becoming a minister, right?
I'm actually a licensed local pastor and a reverend now, and about to be a provisional deacon in the United Methodist Church.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Congratulations
You had
again.
the 3 revs today.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take one last break. When we come back, we'll learn about a new documentary from NECAT, the NECAT network. It's titled, It's All Connected, The Art of Sustainability. It's about how Nashville can lead the way in creating a sustainable future for us all. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Back in 2023, we aired a program about the NECAT network. Now, NECAT is Nashville's public access television network. So what is public access, you ask? Well, it's an opportunity to provide you or anyone you know with access to you need to create your own television show. All sorts of TV shows have been produced there, from Dr. Gangrene's Sanitarium to Cooking with Big Fella. NECAT has been a vessel for anyone who wants to make their mark and make their television idea a reality. Now, last year, NECAT became a part of the Nashville Public Library system. So what can we expect to see from the NECAT network? Some cool things. One cool thing is a new documentary that is premiering on Saturday, March 22nd. That's this coming Saturday. And here to talk about that documentary and NECAT is Cameron McCasland. He is the director of the NECAT network. Cameron, thanks for being here. Welcome back to This is Nashville.
Thanks for having me, Khalil.
Really appreciate it. Okay, so I want to start out by talking about this documentary. It's All Connected, The Art of Sustainability. From the title, one can guess the topic, but take us deeper into the film. What is it really communicating with the audience?
Right. Well, I keep telling people it's more of a question than an answer, in the sense that, like, I get to have a lot of really cool conversations with people that are leading the community in sustainable practices. And that's everyone from, at the heart of it at the library, just all kinds of librarians and all the things that happen at the library. And the library in itself is sustainable. If you think about, like, check out a book, you read the book, you take the book back, and another person does it again. Mm-hmm. And it does that over and over. But the library does so much more than just books. But at the same time, we started looking at, like, how does Nashville move and how the city kind of goes. And, like, so you got We Go Transit, and you got Cumberland River Compact talking to us about the water. You've got, just all the different people from, like, Nashville Zoo looking at and just kind of giving us some insight that we wouldn't have, because the goal of the library and for, NECAT in general is to educate people and to give them opportunity to kind of see what's going on there. So for me, it was just, I got to spend a lot of time talking to people that are more brilliant than I am about the great things that they're doing in the community.
You directed this project, right?
I did. I wrote and directed it, and I was one of the producers amongst a handful of people. Nashville Public Library has a group of people that are working on sustainability at all times, just having those conversations. And that's kind of how this came up. Kate Wingate and Lee Booley had started a sustainability committee at the time, and just were having conversations about, like, what could be done. And they came to me and said, like, what if we made a movie? And that turned into, okay, well, let's look at what the library's doing. And we started looking, like, okay, well, there's a seed exchange. And people who, come in every year, they bring their seeds back in, they trade them, they take them out and grow stuff, whether it be flowers or, crops, and then they bring it back in. And every year that's a sustainable practice that's happening, in that space. You've got out in Donaldson, they're doing a repair fair, and where they're basically taking broken elements of, like, lamps or clothing or whatever it may be, and they're fixing those things, putting buttons back on and fixing lamp cords and different things like that. And it's just like, that's just something you don't think about when you, I'm going to go to the library, but it's like we just for it. And now that Bailey Batilla, who we had talked to at the repair fair, once he was there the first time, he was like, oh, yeah, we're going to repeat this. And now it's like, I think the footage that's in the movie is from the old Donaldson Library. That was the first time they've done it, but they've done it 3 or 4 times now, and they're in that great new facility out in Donaldson and doing it, I think quarterly at this point.
We're going to hear something from the repair fair in a minute, but first I want to get a little bit into your background and your career.
Sure.
This is the first documentary you've produced?
I have done a couple of documentaries. I made a documentary, I guess, about 6 years ago called Jumpin' Johnny. It was about one of the gentlemen, Dr. John Klein, who played for the Harlem Globetrotters back in the day. And it's funny because that movie actually, as soon as I had finished that up, I finished that and I came to NECAT, and it's been one of the joys of my life. But, it's like I didn't really get into film thinking I was going to be a documentary filmmaker, but I've had a lot of opportunities since then to kind of do that and teach people how to do that. And so, it's like this is, I guess, the second feature-length documentary that I've directed. Mm-hmm. But before that, a lot more narrative stuff.
Okay, so talk to me about the production process for this project.
Yeah, part of it is like just having those conversations and first collecting that list of, here's everybody that we could talk to. And a documentary is one of those things where like you can't really make people say the thing you want them to say. You just have to let them talk and then figure out like how do you connect all these different pieces. And so, we had probably 20 different interviews, and I would sit with those people, initially for kind of like this show for about an hour. You would sit and talk to someone and just kind of hear all the things that they do and kind of what they care about and kind of what that is. And then you take all those pieces and you start putting them together with, you make 30 seconds of what they say match the 30 seconds of what someone else says. And they were never in the room in conversation together. You just kind of have to melt all that stuff together. So you end up with sometimes 40 hours worth of interviews that you have to cut down into 90 minutes. And then on top of that, it's like you don't want to just watch talking heads for an hour and a half. So it's like we got it out of the community and started looking like, okay, well, what does Nashville look like as far as its art and as far as like the spaces? And again, like trying to paint a portrait of it that is real to the people that live in the community and not just the Music City postcard that everybody gets all the time. It's interesting because I feel like now it's like after having these conversations, like I see every WeGo bus that goes by now. I can't help because like you talk about WeGo and you like see how important it is, and then you're like, oh, there's buses everywhere. You don't notice it if you're not riding the bus all the time. In the same way that like when you start talking about the trash that's on the side of the road, like it's real easy to drive by that stuff and not see it. But now it's like when it's pointed out to you, it's there all the time. You see it in the water, you see it on the side, and it's not always pretty because like we live in a lovely city. It's a beautiful place. But at the same time, there's this stuff that's like, oh, we could do better at that as individuals. It's like, but how do you do it organizationally? And that's part of the, again, like say the question that we're asking, it's like, how can we do better as individuals and organizations to kind of work this out?
Now, I want to listen to a clip from the documentary. You talked about the repair fair in Donaldson. Let's listen to a clip from that.
Sure.
So at Donaldson, we have the repair fair. It's kind of like a collection of people who know how to fix things come together, and we want people who have broken things to bring their stuff and they can hopefully get it fixed. We had about 40 people come in. Just knives alone, we had like 40 knives that were sharpened. So at the end, I was relieved, one, that it was successful, and two, excited because I rounded up all the numbers and I did all the statistics, and we saved like 100 or 200 pounds of material from going in a landfill. And just thinking that, just one repair fair saved so much stuff from going into a landfill to wasting away. It was such a great feeling just knowing that we did that together as a community.
That's a really cool idea.
Absolutely.
To have something like that. Let me ask you, as you went around kind of filming these events and learning about sustainable efforts from groups and individuals around the city and the region, how did you visualize the ways to tell this story, to expose folks of Nashville of these efforts that are going on?
It really is like I always think about the idea of like, again, like you don't want to watch someone just talking. So it's like, how do you show people up close, like the kind of things that you can fix? Because just hearing him talk through that's 20 seconds. It's like, oh, there may be 5 shots in there. So you're showing like, hey, here's all the different kinds of things you could fix, and here's all the things that you could bring in, like, and all the different types of people that show up for these kind of things, because it's everything from children's toys to, like, say, old busted lamps that your grandpa may have left you that, it's like it's sentimental to you, so you don't want to throw it out, but it hasn't worked in 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, in that kind of stuff, it's like just getting it back up and running, because, like, if you think about, like, laying around your house, how much stuff do you have that just isn't working, but you don't throw it away because you're like, oh, that's useful, but
you got that box of cords and things that you may right. need, but you don't use.
Well, it's like you got to make that trip to Ace Hardware to pick up the bolts to fix the thing. And it's like, and when are you going to do that? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So, secondly, you talked about, the awareness. Suddenly, having done the documentary, you see WeGo buses everywhere.
Right.
You see trash on the street different. It's a lot more prominent to you. As you discovered these efforts of people, did you get a sense of hope about where Nashville is as far as sustainability is concerned?
I got a ton of hope. And again, just seeing how people respond to all of the different types of things that are going on. And to see the joy that they find, because we went out to Edge Hill Community Garden and we talked to Miss Brenda Morrow out there, and she's just growing stuff for the community. And with that, it's right next to the Edge Hill Library. It's like anybody could come work in the garden, but also anyone can take from the garden and get some fresh produce and things like that, and learn how to, just grow something in their own home and things like that. And it's like, and just seeing how that is reinvigorated certain people, it gives them a place to be, like at that third space that people always talk about. And again, gives them just a practice of mindfulness, I think that they get into through there. I think that was great. It's like, and looking at again, going back to the library, it's like, I don't know, have you heard of the library things, Khalil?
Yes.
So the library things is for our audience listening at home. It's like, it's stuff that you can check out from the library just to kind of see hey, this is something I may need or want to try out. I need to bake a cake for my kid. I can get all the pans, from the library. I need a radon detector. It's like, I don't need that all the time. I just need it once to see if my house is cool. You can go get that kind of thing. And just to like see the joy that people get of like, oh, I always wanted to try this, but I didn't know how, or wasn't affordable. It's like it just opens up doors. There's a lot of equity in the fact that there is, whenever you can make things affordable for people.
Now, I want to listen to another clip that really places the onus on us as individuals. Here it is.
Patience is the thing that's missing there, because it's this like dopamine addiction of I want strawberry and I want it now. So I can go out at 11:30 at night and buy us some strawberries right now.
Because everything is so convenient, because you can go and get strawberries any time of the year, and because you go to the grocery store to get those things, I think there's a lot of disconnect. And I see this a lot with non-food products, so like plastic products and with paper plates and all of these different things that are so disposable in our everyday lives. There's not a connection to the fact that that is a natural resource, that we have had to extract that from the earth, and we may be extracting so much that it's not coming back, that it will be gone, and that will be detrimental to us in the long term.
Now, these folks are talking about our own habits and our lifestyle preferences that exacerbate the problem. Who are those folks, and how does the documentary feature them?
So that's Bassam Habib, who works for the National Public Library in the Be Well program, and Jennifer Harmon, who works for Metro Waste. And she, it's like kind of is the one who gets all your trash and gets it to all the places it needs to go to turn into great things that people can reuse all the time. And I don't know. I think for us with this, it was we really didn't want to make anyone feel bad about all the choices that they're making, because I truly do believe that people want to do good. They like, you throw your stuff in the recycle bin because you think it's going to the right space. It's like you may compost your food or you may not. It's like depending on what it is. Our goal is not to make you feel bad or to look at this, but it's like, hey, what are the simple ways? What are things that other people are doing, and can you fit that into your life? Because nobody can do everything. They just can't. Like it's not possible. Yeah. But everybody can do something, and I think that's the thing that I learned in making this is like there's a lot of different avenues to try to help do better, even when you can't do it all by yourself. Now, the documentary is premiered at an event on Saturday. Talk to us about this event. Sure. So the movie's going to premiere at the Downtown Library. There's going to be a reception at 5 o'clock there in the main lobby. Because it's a Saturday, anyone that wants to come will have to enter through the parking garage. But at 6 o'clock, there's some opening remarks. Terry Luke, who is the director of the National Public Library, will do an opening statement, and then we'll show the movie. Like I say, it runs around 90 minutes. And then following that, we're actually going to tape a half-hour conversation with some of the other people that were in the film and some people that weren't, just about sustainable practices that I'm going to MC myself. And Jerome Moore, who is going to be on the panel, he's in the movie. I'm trying to think. Susan Drive from National Public Library is going to be there. Eric Meltzer from WeGo. Jen Harmon, who we just heard, she'll be there on the panel. And so going to be a great conversation there just to kind of help wrap it up. And Todd Lawrence as well from Urban Green Lab, who is kind of one of the people who helped get this whole thing going, because Urban Green Lab was a huge supporter in making this movie happen for us and giving us a lot of insight on who to talk to and kind of where to go with the whole thing. Now, I mentioned earlier, we only have a couple minutes left, but I mentioned earlier that last year NECAT became an official part of the Nashville Public Library. Yeah. 2 years ago at this point, I think. 2 years ago? Okay. Yeah. What does that mean for NECAT and the public library? So it was one of those things that, post-pandemic, NECAT needed a new place to be. It has operated as a nonprofit. I mean, Public Access has been in Nashville since 1978 under a couple different titles. It was MEAC back in the day. It's moved around, merged, rechanged, and all this. But coming into the National Public Library has been great, because what it has done is it's allowed us to open up and again, explore all these different spaces. National Public Library already is doing stuff like Studio NPL downtown, which is teaching teenagers how to make podcasts and things like that. So we're able to kind of take some of the things they're doing and bring it over into NECAT, but also help support things like that. And again, giving them a window, because not only the people that make things at NECAT, but there's all the people that watch at home. It's like we're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week across 3 channels. So with that, you've got, I think someone told me 93,000 Comcast subscriber homes that we're in. And so we want to make sure that people at home have stuff to watch that is local, that is, educational, that is kind of brings the heart of the city to them, where they can kind of hear about what it is. And so we're able to spotlight the public library in that way and kind of show off things like this documentary and other programs that are happening, on there that just kind of say hey, this is what's going on in this space, because there's, over 20 public library branches. And a lot of people, I think they drive by them sometimes, but they haven't been inside. But You see this thing on TV and you go, oh, I know that building. I've been in there before. And then you see the things going on like, oh, I thought you could just get books there, because I think a lot of people, that's what they think about the library, but there's so much more going on than just books at the library.
How can folks sign up to make their own TV show or documentary?
So if they could go to our website, which is necatnetwork.org, they can sign up for classes there. And if they want to find out about the documentary, they can also get a ticket there. It's free to come, but you got to register for a seat.
All right, Cameron McCasland is the director of the NECAT Network and the director of the documentary, It's All Connected, The Art of Sustainability. The premiere event is happening Saturday, March 22nd at the main library auditorium. Head to library.nashville.org to learn more. Cam, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thanks, Khalil. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. All right. Thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by yours truly. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation doesn't end here. Comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. Also, hit us up on the socials, Blue Sky, Instagram, and X at This is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. And to be good to each other.